Hi there. Welcome to Soothing Pod's Sleep Stories. My name is Joe, and today I would like to help you relax and fall asleep, guided by my voice and the story you are about to hear. Tonight, I will tell you a story of a young girl trapped in a tower and how she escaped and found her true love. Before we begin, let's get comfortable and make sure that you're snugly tucked in bed. Get all nice and cozy as you close your eyes. Pay attention to your breathing and inhale through your nose and out through your mouth. Relax as you continue to breathe in and out. Let's pause for 5 seconds, just to get comfy, just to get still. Great. Now you're ready to listen to the story. Once upon a time, there lived a man and a woman who longed to have a child to call their own. The man and the woman had been married for years, but had not been blessed with a child. One day, they found out that their deepest wish to have a child had been granted. Overcome with joy, the man did everything he could to make his wife happy while they were waiting for the arrival of their child. The couple lived in a large house overlooking the most splendid garden. This garden had the finest herbs and flowers sprawling as far as the eye could see. It was a beautiful sight to behold, but it was dreaded by everyone who lived in the village. You see, surrounded by a high wall, this garden belonged to a powerful and evil enchantress. No one dared to cross this enchantress, lest they end up under the wrath of her spell. One day, the woman was looking out of the window, admiring the beauty of the garden. It was colorful and lush, filled with all the kinds of herbs and plants you could imagine. She grew especially fond of the Rapunzel plant patch. The plants looked so fresh and so green that she longed for even a small bite out of the succulent plant. With every day that passed, the longing for the Rapunzel plant became stronger until the woman refused to eat anything else anymore. She cried, knowing that she could not have it. The woman was now getting weak and miserable as each day passed, and this worried the man so much. "What is the matter, dear wife?" asked the husband. "Oh, dear husband, I am afraid that if I cannot eat the Rapunzel, I will die," replied the wife, with tears in her eyes. "Do not cry," the man replied as he wiped off her tears. "Tonight I will get as much Rapunzel as you want so that you can eat to your heart's content." That night, the man climbed up the wall and into the garden. Although he was afraid that the enchantress might catch him, he tried to be brave as he scooped up a basket full of Rapunzels. As he took the basket back to his wife, he felt relieved that finally she could eat and be well again. When the wife received the basket of Rapunzels, she hastily took it to the kitchen and made a delicious salad. The wife ate it all up, having not one, but 3 servings all to herself. When she finished eating the Rapunzels, she felt her strength come back, but she also found that she longed to have more. This time, the longing was stronger than before. She urged her husband to climb over the wall once again to gather more Rapunzel from the garden. The following night, the husband climbed over the wall again. However, This time, upon landing in the garden, he was greeted by the enchantress. Her eyes were gleaming with anger as she stood towering over the man. "How dare you steal from my garden?" she growled. "Anyone who dares to steal from my garden will meet a grave punishment." "Please have mercy," begged the man. "My wife is expecting a child and longs for the Rapunzel in your garden. I mean no harm. I just needed to get some, or else my wife and child will die." The enchantress felt how sincere the man was and saw how he loved his wife and child. So instead of a stern punishment, she offered to make a bargain with the man. "Ah, in that case, I will allow you to take as many Rapunzels as you wish from my garden," the enchantress offered. "Come back every day and let your wife eat as much as she pleases." "Thank you, you are most kind," replied the man as he tried to steady himself. "However," the enchantress continued, "in return for taking from my garden, you have to promise to give me your child. I will care for it like a mother. That is all I ask in return." The man, in his terror, agreed to give up his child. And when the day came for the child to be born, the enchantress was outside of the door waiting to take the child away. The enchantress took the child and named her Rapunzel. And as she had promised, she cared for the child and raised her as her own. Rapunzel grew up to be the most beautiful child and was gifted with many talents. She could paint, sew, and had the most melodious singing voice. Rapunzel was also endowed with long locks of golden hair that shimmered in the daylight. Wanting to keep Rapunzel to herself, the enchantress locked her in a high tower with no doors. The only way to get inside was through the window, and with the help of Rapunzel's long golden hair. When the enchantress would come to the tower, all she had to do was call out to Rapunzel. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." In an instant, a wave of long golden hair would cascade out of her tower window, and the enchantress would use this to climb up the tower. Rapunzel lived alone for years and only had the enchantress for a companion. One day, a young prince got lost in the forest and heard a beautiful voice singing an enchanting song. He followed the sound and saw that it came from the high tower. The prince wondered how he could climb up the tower, seeing that there wasn't a door or any stairs leading inside. The prince waited and looked from afar until he saw the enchantress arrive at the foot of the tower. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," he heard the enchantress call out. It was then that he saw Rapunzel peeking out from the tower window and throw down her golden hair. As the enchantress climbed up into the tower, the prince came up with an idea. "I will come back tomorrow, and if I am lucky, I might be able to see the girl whose voice sounds like that of an angel's," said the prince as he rode back into his kingdom. The following night, the prince came back to the tower, and when he saw that there was no one in sight, he called out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And just as he had planned, Rapunzel let down her long golden hair, and the prince climbed this until he reached the tower window. When the prince reached the top of the tower, Rapunzel was surprised. In all her years, she had never seen another person besides the enchantress. At first, Rapunzel was afraid of this strange man. However, the prince proved to be courteous, and in no time they were talking like old friends. The prince told her that he had been so in love with her when he heard her voice that he took the risk of climbing up the tower. The prince asked Rapunzel to run away from the tower with him. "But my prince, I fear that I cannot escape from the tower because there is only a window and no stairs for me to climb," Rapunzel replied sadly. "Do not worry, my dear Rapunzel. Every day I will come and bring you silk that you can weave into a ladder," replied the prince. "When this is ready, you can use it to climb down from this tower, and I will take you to my kingdom." And so it happened that the prince would visit every nightfall and the enchantress visited during the day. This went on for a while without the enchantress's knowledge. However, as time went by, the enchantress caught a hunch that something was going on in the tower. One day, she decided to visit in the night time. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," she called from the foot of the tower. Rapunzel, thinking that it was the prince, awoke from her sleep and lowered her golden hair. When the enchantress reached the tower window, Rapunzel was caught in surprise. "I'm sure you were not expecting me, child," said the enchantress as she took out a pair of scissors that glimmered in the moonlight. "I took care of you and raised you as my own, but you defied me," continued the enchantress. "I will banish you into the forest and never to be seen again." The enchantress cut off Rapunzel's long hair and sent her out into the deep ends of the forest. On the same night, the prince visited the tower, expecting to see Rapunzel and take her to his castle. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," the prince cried out from the foot of the tower. There was no reply. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," he cried out again. This time, the enchantress took Rapunzel's long golden hair and fastened it on the hook of the window. The prince climbed up the tower in haste to see Rapunzel. When the prince reached the top of the tower, he was surprised to see that it was not Rapunzel waiting for him, but the enchantress. Her eyes were glaring with anger. "How dare you try and take what is mine?" she said to the prince. "I have banished Rapunzel, and you will never see her again." At the stroke of her hand, she turned the prince blind. The prince made his way out of the tower, but since he was now blind, he could not find his way into the kingdom. He spent his days wandering in the forest until one day he heard a familiar voice singing. He followed this voice, and he came closer. He realized that it was no other than Rapunzel. They had found each other in the forest. When Rapunzel saw what happened to the prince, she cried. Some of Rapunzel's tears fell into the prince's eyes, and in that instant, her tears melted the hardened bits of his eyes. Finally, the prince could see again. The prince took Rapunzel to his kingdom, where they married and lived happily ever after. Now, that was a happy ending, wasn't it? And you can be sure that Rapunzel enjoyed being out in the world, discovering the prince's kingdom, and enjoying all the things she had never known before. Also, you can be sure she slept very well in the night, never afraid that the enchantress would trick her again. I hope you enjoyed this classic fairy tale and that you will now be able to drift off into dreamland. Sleep well, and I'll be back for another story tomorrow.